Hello, my name is Foster Doherty.
My name is Daniel Mesco.
This is our TicTacToe program. It's quite an awesome program. I guess we can demo it right now for you.
Yeah, let's go ahead and demo it first. It's a JFrame TicTacToe game. You can use two players, and it's color coded and all that.
Okay. So Daniel and I are going to play this game. So I'll enter my name, and it gives you the option to customize my color. So for right now, we're just going to say no.
D-Wizzy would be nice.
D-Wizzy.
D-Wizzy. There you go.
Okay, he's going to skip that. So if you don't press any of the colors, it actually will default to
This nice, I don't know.
blue.
It's like a white with the sun with a.
It
looks like there's a glare on it. It's a nice.
No.
Move it to the center. Move it to the center.
I say, just to mention for the sake of right now, I believe it's not default. That's one issue I noticed when we put our programs into BlueJ, is that for some reason it doesn't like to check their colors. So the color might not work. But let's just play a game here.
So
Yeah. So you see, I don't know why it's doing that.
That's his move. Put me on the bottom left.
Okay.
Put me in the center. Oh, he's done it! Alright, put me right there. Yep, there you go.
Okay. So I win. Now the cool thing is that we have these options here. I'll explain this in a sec. This is quite cool on JMenu bar. But basically we can start a new game.
Create games again, all that, and
then we just put these
Now
test
do
letters.
a color. I want to see a color now.
Oh, okay.
the custom works
Wait,
on
then I'll start a new
red,
game.
green, blue.
Yeah, the
you can choose
RGB.
The RGB, the code that you want.
So let's see. So it says enter 3 RGB values. So let's say I want to make it red. Then I would do, 255, 0, and 0. And let's say Mesco wants to do green. He would do 0, 255, and 0. Now, see, this is what I was mentioning earlier. That I don't think BlueJ is necessarily accepting our
Well,
colors here.
Let's see what the.
It's really weird.
What happens.
Well, go ahead and click. Do your.
Let's see what happens.
Okay, so let's say we're doing this. See, what it's supposed to do, which would work when we run it, is that the entire background. First of all, the buttons don't look like this. I think that's part of the problem. They actually look a bit more normal, and then the entire background frame changes the color of the player you're just showing. That way, yeah, you understand what turn it is.
One, please, one at a time.
Yeah.
One at a time.
Okay.
That's the one thing, guys. When you're screencasting, make sure you don't talk, over each other. Okay. One at a
Depending on
time,
whose turn it is, the color changes the background to the RGB values you set.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, how do you suppose, Foster, one can fix that?
For BlueJ, I mean, I think that's just how BlueJ likes to run their JFrames.
Okay. Should we try running this in JCreator and see what happens?
I guess we could try that out.
Okay.
Yep.
Alt P. Click Alt P.
Oh.
Okay. So now you're in JCreator.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's see what happens.
Let's try this out.
I think it's the play.
We could run it like
there
this.
you go, run. There you
Oh, here we go. So let's see if this works. So again, I'm gonna use F as an acronym here, and
Let's do a color.
well, I just want to show you the default. Oh, okay, fine. I'll do a color.
Do a player 2 color then.
Okay. Wait, I forgot what it defaults to. Hold on, let me just show you right here. Oh, see, it's doing it again. That is so weird.
He has the Mac Eclipse where we actually programmed it.
Yeah, it's probably because the Mac does a
Mac
JFrame
Eclipse
differently.
set color, but
Okay.
it's
So
okay.
you're saying JFrame for a Mac is different than JFrame for
Well,
Windows?
he was using Eclipse
guess
on
so.
his Mac anyway.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you have Eclipse on this computer.
No,
but
you
it
have to
doesn't-
re-download
It's
it.
fine anyway.
But I think that's
the
just the
colors
way
are an
the
added
operating.
bonus. The functionality of the game is the main
Okay.
bonus.
Yeah.
So we can show you the
And the
whole code
menu.
and then just focus on the game.
Okay.
We also want to show off this cool menu bar that we can talk about. Oh yeah, so let me just.
Do you want to go back to
Yeah, I kind of do. You
BlueJ?
still have it open in BlueJ? I like to
Okay,
I can reopen.
hit Alt P.
Oh.
Okay, back to BlueJ.
Yep, we've been
Okay,
running around
so
here.
explain to us the code and
Okay.
how you did this.
So, you can start off here. With
Okay, well, we
the
first
import.
started importing a few files that we needed to. It's a JFrame, so we needed a few things for that.
What do you need for JFrame?
Java.auth, we brought all of it in. We don't call all of it in, but it's easier because to keep track, it would have been a bigger mess, and we would have used extra lines of code. And then javax.swing, and then we established our variables. This is a public class main, and it uses JFrame and implements action listener, because whenever you click a button, it does something in response, so you need action listener to interpret that input.
Right.
So we create a bunch of variables right off the bat to get them out of the way, and it's very organized. The JFrame is called frame, and we call it TicTacToe, or that's what it says, TicTacToe. And then these buttons don't have anything written on them because they're just the TicTacToe buttons, but there's 9 of them. It's a 3x3 square. And the font, where do you use the font? Is that just for the menu bar? Or
that's for actually for on the buttons themselves.
Oh, the X and the O?
Yeah, to make sure that the letters aren't super tiny and hard to read.
So that's the font for the X and the O once you click the button.
Yeah. It's very easy to see.
And then just various variables that we use to actually create the program, to keep a count of how many turns have been used, that you don't see printed out, but they're working in the background.
Right.
And then I mentioned the menu bar too, just the few variables that we're going to be using.
Oh yeah, the menu bar. The menu bar is a feature we like a lot. It's the ability to start a new game, exit the game, and what was the other option?
Oh, we have like a little about page.
The about page. There's a little information page that we'll show you in a minute, a little added bonus. But you have to create a JMenu bar variable. So we have menu bar, and then the menu, and then 3 different options. New game, exit, and about are the 3 options you can click when you look at that menu bar. And then the colors, which are extraneous at this point because they didn't work. But those are the colors, your ability to choose colors for each turn, and they would switch back and forth between player 1's color and player 2's color each turn. Just so you know what would have happened if that had come up. Go ahead.
So basically, we have our main constructor right here. We actually kept it pretty simple. Normally I would have all the things like frame, set visible, and all that stuff. But we actually have that happening later in the program. So basically all it's doing is just saying make it. When you make it, just put the title as title, because we're really original like that. And just start running the program.
And then run the program.
So we actually have it going to a void intro. That way we can be a little more organized here. And you can actually explain this one. I'm going to get into a little in depth later when it gets confusing. So basically, this is just talking about this little, intro pane that you see when you're starting the program. So it'll say like, enter your name and you want to customize your color.
There's no variable. There's no data for the player 1's name at first. So it starts, I guess, with the while loop to interpret its name, because before you do anything, you need to know the name of the players.
Exactly.
You go ahead.
Yeah. And basically, we use the loops and if statements quite well here, to make sure that people don't end up like choosing nothing and we get like errors and stuff like that. So basically, we have this giant do while loop to make sure to do it once. That way we can get our input from the user. And then, if they make the mistake of at any point throughout the program, we have a Boolean variable called loop1, for this first loop, to just take them back through it. So that way, whenever we have an error, we just go to a loop 1.
It will only move on past that loop once it's satisfied. The only way that it'll be satisfied is if loop 1 is made it true, and that can only happen in a certain condition. So if it doesn't occur, it'll run the program again. It won't just go on without a name.
It occurred to me, you're comparing loop 1. You're comparing loop 1 to either true or false, right?
Yeah. The Boolean statement.
But what you're doing is you're assigning loop 1 the value false.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you do loop 1 equals false?
There's one instance. You're right. Down here where it says while, I think is what he's referring to.
I think talking about like using equals rather than just
that instance.
Equals is used to compare
a
variable to a value, right?
It's in a comparison.
Wait, let me just finish my point. Equals is used to compare a variable.
Absolutely, you're right.
A variable to a value.
Okay.
Equals is assigning
that
variable a value.
Yeah.
So maybe one of the reasons why the color thing isn't working is you're instead of assigning it false, you should be comparing it to false.
No, I mean that wouldn't change whether the colors work.
Here.
The reason I'm having it go back from true and false is the fact that I'm controlling whether it leaves the loop or not. So like, if I don't want it to choose a color, we'll run this if statement right here. I do want to assign it true, so that way it will exit out. It's the same thing as saying break out of the loop, because then
Okay,
one
so
does
you're
not
using
fall.
it to break out of the loop,
Yeah.
and instead of using break.
Yeah.
It's constantly changing depending on whether or not the goals of that while loop have been filled. So if they
Have been
haven't,
fulfilled.
Have been fulfilled. Yeah. So here, when it says loop 1 equals true, it's making it true because it's already done X, Y, Z. It's already done all of that. Otherwise, it won't be true because it won't have gone through that loop.
Okay.
Let me
Yeah.
erase this.
No, I was just wondering whether or not that step was extraneous or not. That's all.
I mean, that's just how we designed it. And basically, to make sure that the person actually chooses the correct color value, we have it, the range between 0 and 255. And as you see down here, it's almost the exact same process, except for player 2 now. So, we're doing everything else with like loop 2 and everything else, going through that. And as you can see down in the intro, this is part of the issue we were having when we would, oh crap, sorry, we would be doing our program. And one of the issues we had while we were developing this would be the fact that after you would win a game and you would start a new game, we would actually be starting where the other player, because they would reassign the counts variable that we'll explain later, that will make sure to keep count of players' turns, would keep increasing. So then the problem we would have would be the fact that when you start a new game, it'd say the other person wins, because we're saying that if the win is true, and it's the next person's turn. Yeah.
It resets the board, but it would remember the previous game's results.
So we have to reset the variables too. So these are these two things to make sure that no one has won because we're starting a new game, and the fact that we're back at 0 for the count. So also to keep some more organization here, we actually have another voided here called init, and this is where we start getting into the nitty-gritty of all the other stuff we're using. So you can talk about this. This is basically just we're defining some variables here.
What is the purpose of init when you're talking about when you're using swing and all that?
Well, I mean, init. I mean, I could have called it anything really. I didn't. I mean, I think it's just how I learned it. I always want to call it init because initialization.
Okay.
I don't know. That's
So
just
tell
me.
us the purpose of this method.
So really, that's actually not a method. It's a void. So what it basically is doing, to put it lightly, is the fact that I'm just putting the code. What?
That is a method.
It's the it's the main operation method in the program.
Yeah, it's a method.
So the sort of the beginning of the program is just establishing the names, and nothing has happened as far as the game is taking place.
Right.
Init is the bulk of the program. It's where you actually play the game. So it's set as the main one because at any point that there's something, you go back to init. You go back to init rather than having to go back to what's my name again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the it's like when you're taking a test, first you write your name and then you go to the first problem. When you check over the test at the end of the test, you go back to the first problem.
Yeah.
You don't go back to your name.
Right.
So it's kind of it's where the actual program happens, and the previous stuff is just logistics that has to be settled at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was going to add to that. I mean, in reality, you could just not use voids at all. You could have wrote all the code, in it. But as Daniel was explaining, it makes it much easier to refer to certain sections of code better. That way, you don't have to say okay, go to this part and then do this and do this. It makes it very confusing.
Yeah, you're
It's just blocks of the code,
realizing the importance of object-oriented programming.
Yeah. So
instead of having to do all sorts of things sequentially like that, you could just, once you finish this and you want to run this here, if you need to go back to here, you don't have to do this again. That's procedural, and what you're doing is object-oriented.
Because if you want to repeat it, if you want to play another game, it's not getting through the procedural, it's just playing the game.
Right.
So this is just establishing the color variable. There's 2 for each person, and there's 3 parameters. It's the red, green, and blue values.
yeah, and these were from before the X, Y, Z, A,
Where
B,
you-
C.
yeah, when you say,
so
I want this,
that'd be defined, as A, B, C, while you're choosing your color.
And then
So-
the fonts
Sorry.
that we use, there are 9 fonts, I guess, are for the 9 different
Squares.
on the board.
Now, what about that frame.add? What does that do?
Well, B1 through B9 is button 1. It's the variable. It's each button. You have to create each one independently, and then they have to be added to the frame, meaning they have to be, you know, put into the square, because originally they were just separate buttons, you know, all of the same size, but they have to be put together. So frame.add means we're going to add button 1 to this frame. We're going to, it's like taking them and putting them inside of the window.
And how does it know to add it in that order? Like maybe left to right and then up to down.
Yeah, so the interesting thing was that by default, a JFrame will actually use the flow layout, which basically means, you know, if you have a certain size, just start putting them in like in reading order, like you're reading a book, just start putting them left to right, which happened to be, I mean, the funny thing is that
it doesn't work really for this.
Yeah. So because as long as we know the names of the buttons, then we can just, you know, access it however we want. But you know, in the case that we would want to, like, say we put it in a certain order, like we want like different types of buttons, well then we would actually have like, we would have earlier set like a JPanel in the frame, or I think the fact that we only have one frame, we could have done just a layout for the frame,
right?
And then specifically assign it. But since we didn't need to, and we didn't want to spend more time doing it, we just added them in with the default flow layout.
Yeah, the default layout works for us.
Now, scroll up a little bit. Explain. No,
Nope.
I'm sorry. Scroll down.
Go down. We're gonna say.
Yeah, right there. Stop right there. Explain the purpose of using the keyword "this" when you're invoking the action listener.
Well, basically, if you were to, I mean, it's a bit more in the situation that you would have multiple, like, multiple Java programs, multiple files.
Threads.
Yeah, multiple threads, yeah. You would want to, you're talking about action listener here, you want the buttons to be assigned to the action listener of this thread, which we override down here, which we'll also explain later, in this action listener override. But, I mean, in layman's terms, basically saying, give it an action listener and put it on this program. So,
but in addition, associated with this button, that's what you do.
Associate a certain response that'll occur when you click button 1, button 2, button 3, and so forth.
Basically giving it like a mouth to be able to have the action listener to hear from. Yeah. And this is where we get started using these menu stuff that we've been talking about all the time. Dana, you can just run through this.
The menu, we're just giving it labels. We what is the term? Initialize the variables up top, but we haven't actually defined anything about them. And now that they're coming into play, we use them. We give them the text name that you see written in the quotations there in green. So for the one that's the button is called game, and that's what you're doing. So you click on game, and then you can click it, and it'll drop down. There'll be menu items. So the menu is the game, and there are 3 menu items, and that's a new game, which will, if you click it, you know, start a new game. Exit game, which will close, and about brings up a page with some information about who programmed it and all that. We'll show you that later. And then it's adding action listeners to those buttons too, because when you click them, a certain response happen. Either it resets the program, or it closes the window, or it brings up a new page, you know, for each one. And they're being added to the menu. We have to add the variable to this drop-down menu so that they're actually in place. And adding the menu bar to the top of the window there, the bar. We only have one button. Technically, we could add a couple of buttons that say game, exit, you know, edit, file, whatnot. We only have one because it's a simple program. And then it's just, these are logistical things about setting the size of the window on your screen, the layout, you know, so it's not giant buttons, so everything's kind of compact and not too big, not too small. And then setting the background color, the default, which you can't really see, but that would be C1. It starts off with the first player's background color when you open that window because it's the first person's turn. And then set visible to true just allows you to see the window. It's procedural thing, mostly.
Yeah. And so I'll get into this part. This part actually is where a lot of the coding comes in, a lot of the logic. So basically, as I mentioned before, every turn we have this count variable going up, you know, which makes sure. What? Oh yeah. That makes sure it's to increase the count every time you run through an action performed. Which basically says if anything happens, go to the next turn because you know we want to continue going through the game. So this is probably the other problem we had about the program was the fact that while we were doing the program, all of the buttons on the menu and the buttons on the actual program were independent of each other. So if you would click, let's say like I was to do something let's say it was I wanted to like do a new game. Well, then it would do a new game. Yes, it would say, if there's a new game, do this. But it would also do everything else in the program. So it'd say like, oh, it's like turn 10 and the other person won, which doesn't make any sense, obviously. So basically, not only is it listening for actions, but it's listening for only one action to happen. So we'll say like, if this, if not, go to the next one. If statement.
This only happens in this instance. There's nothing else will happen as a repercussion of it.
Yeah. So basically, so we just did one for each action here. So we have our new game, our exit, our about.
I'd like to give a shout out to Mark Fuel there.
Yeah.
Helped us a lot with moral support. We were having trying times. We couldn't figure out certain errors, and he patted us on the back. So thanks for him. You'll see the video.
Well, we'll revisit this in a sec.
We'll take part of your grade and give it to him.
But only like 20%. I mean, I wouldn't be too happy about that. That'll take you down.
Yeah.
First grade in the quarter.
Oh, okay. So now
this
is where it gets a little bit complicated. Basically, so if we don't press any of the money buttons, then it'll start running the program. So it'll be like we use modulus divided by 2 to make sure that we know like whose turn it is. It's even or not. Very simple. So if it's even or if not, and depending on that, we'll have the letter X or O, and then if the colors were working.
So the first one is always an X. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first
and the
turn
second one's always a no.
is always a no. So if it's the first turn, it's not.
Every odd turn is an X. Every even turn is
and then the color also changes. C now is the current color used.
It's
C now is
supposed to
going to be
change.
equal to. It's supposed to. Yeah. In the Eclipse version. It'll
Or the
change
Mac
to
version.
accommodate that person's
I wonder
turn.
why that's. I don't get it.
That doesn't make any
Java's
sense.
Java. I mean, it doesn't matter which.
Yeah, that's what
Maybe
just
it's
blows my
something to do
mind.
with the version of JFrame. Maybe they're different on each from one computer to the next. But
It might be updated or something. But
Or,
anyway.
yeah, that is true. I might have to update Java.
That might be.
Good point.
And so now basically this is just what we would normally have for listening to buttons, except now it's in this else in the else portion of the if statement. Basically, if any of the buttons are pressed, it'll go through this 4-step process, which is first to set the text to the letter, and we have the letter defined here as whether it's an X or an O, depending on whose turn it is.
So it puts that
And then-
letter inside of the button once it's been clicked.
Yeah, and then we have this cool set enabled button method, which basically means that not only does it have that kind of like look where if a button's pressed, it'll stay pressed.
Right.
But not only that, but you can't like keep pressing it and like be screwing up the program. You can like double place something.
Double place on a certain square.
Yeah, so basically saying the button's been pressed, you can't press it anymore. Press another button.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then
That's actually a very insightful piece of code there.
Mhm.
So who thought of that?
That was
Well,
it.
Well, yeah, I was just
Well, I mean, who created the function or who used it in this
Well,
program?
that particular line, yeah.
In this instance, this was.
Yeah, because it does occur to me that like a lot of games that I download, little games that are free and all that, a lot of them have that where it's a nice game and it's but if a person clicks once too many times, it really messes up the order of the players and stuff like that. So that's good.
So, and then here's where the colors would come into play. Not only are we setting the text to the current letter, but we're also setting the frame, the background of it, to the current color. That'll be C now. It depends on whose color it is.
That button becomes representing the color, the person who clicked it.
Yeah, and then we repaint it to make sure to show it. Because you could always change.
But it's not showing it.
It's not showing it in this.
Yeah, for this one, I don't know.
But that's the code that
if his color is red,
that you claim will do it.
That will do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then the same thing happens for every single button you do.
Yeah.
Now, the winning.
It occurs to me that if your program is working perfectly on your laptop, and then for some reason it doesn't work here, in the future I think we're just going to have to screencast from the computer that is working perfectly on. Okay, so get familiar with Screencast-O-Matic, and then we could just screencast from each one of these computers. Okay.
Okay. So, and so then here, this is where all the nitty-gritty math comes in.
Yeah, it's all the options for you.
Yeah,
to
this is
make.
basically.
Go ahead and just explain one of those lines. Explain the first line
Okay.
of the conditional.
Okay, so
Scroll down,
here.
scroll up a little bit so they can see it. There.
Okay, so we'll do the first win possibility. So basically, it's saying you'll win if button 1 and button 2 are the same, as well as button 2 and button 3 are the same, and button does not have nothing in it, which basically means it does have something in it. So basically, that's a really complicated way of saying all three of those are the same thing.
On the top row there.
So why? You said it's a complicated way. Why is there a simpler way? And why? And if
Not
there
really.
is, why did you use it?
No, I mean, this is how you would do it, because basically, the only way to tell if the button, the only way to tell that you won is when you have 3 in a row.
Yeah.
And the only way to tell you have 3 in a row is when you have 3 of the same thing.
3 of the same
And
thing
then
that have been clicked by the same
so
person.
basically,
So that is the most efficient way.
Yeah.
But in certain instances, 3 could be the same if nobody's clicked them. So it's saying, that there needs to be a value for these squares.
Right. So if it's not equal to
Yeah.
no.
Yeah,
So there is
we
something.
can't tell the computer if there's 3 in a row because the computer doesn't know the combinations, and everything.
Yeah,
so,
there could be
so we
3
have to create
non-clicks
every
in a row.
single. Yeah, we have to create
Yeah.
every single way that you can win based on the rules of the game.
Right.
Yeah, and it works for every single one
Each
combination.
instance, yeah, if it's
Yeah.
diagonal, on the
All
bottom,
that.
on the sides, in the middle.
So how many instances are there? in
Well, there's
TicTacToe?
8 because you can do, the 3 horizontal, the 3 vertical, and the
That's
2
two
diagonals.
Right.
Yeah, and then basically saying if none of this happens, then you haven't won.
Nobody's won, so.
And then so basically, if no one's won, the game keeps going. It'll go back through the loop,
back
and
to
that's
the
why
loop.
it works really well. But if someone does win, then it'll again check whose turn it is. So it'll say, do the modulus thing again, and depending on who wins, it'll print their name. Like, let's say I won, it'd be Foster wins because I have my name as P1. However, the way we check for a tie is it happens that if no one's won and it's turn 9, then basically, again, it'll print out tie game because, you have the common tie game, TicTacToe.
Yeah.
And, we have this running right here again. This is how we would normally run our program. We'd have it as a main. But the interesting thing that I want to really show you guys is right here within menu items. Basically, the menu item, I'm running the code right here. Menu items are basically the same thing as buttons. Let me just go through here quick. And what's interesting about them is that you actually, normally if you're running anything, you'd have these drop down. Like even you can see like on Blue Jay, they have theirs here, and they have theirs right here. It's a very common Java thing. And the interesting thing is that not only can you have like multiple menus, with multiple items, but the actions that you do, you can really make them like accessible throughout the entire program. So as if you're like having like as you use like your phone, for example, you can always access like the top, like if you're using iPhone, you can always access like
The
your
slide down
important
menu
for
or
notifications and
whatever.
stuff
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Right.
So it's similar to that. Now, the cool thing is that we have our new game, which I can show the code right here. All it does is gets rid of the old one and makes a new one. And then
Right,
the,
that dispose.
and then the exit one, it just gets rid of it anyway. So that's why it's nice to use the constructors, because then we can just rerun the entire program. But then we have our little, oh crap. And we have our little Easter egg here that you guys gotta see earlier with coding. Oh.
Wow.
Crash?
Not too interesting of an Easter egg.
Wow.
Oh well, okay.
Sorry, I failed you.
Here we go. So we have this TicTacToe 2.0 because we had an earlier version that wasn't working, so we decided to start over. And then we thank everyone. Thank Steve Jobs for the computer. Roman Empire for creating TicTacToe. I actually had to research that. That was pretty interesting. And the Big Bang for creating the universe.
Not much of an Easter egg. I mean, you have to. You just click about and then everybody can get the Easter egg.
Wait, well, it's not a hidden Easter egg.
Top right, you put it in, it shows an Easter egg, like an actual Easter egg.
What is that thing in Harry Potter? Like they're looking at the end of the movie series. They're looking for these things all over the world. What are they called?
Oh, the Horcruxes.
The Horcruxes. It'd be interesting if
It's an
you
Easter egg, I guess.
did some type of
Balloon.
you did some type of keyboard thing, and then all of a sudden out popped up one of the Horcruxes. Okay.
That'll be TicTacToe 3.0.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the
that
future.
reminds me, guys. Something that you may want to consider doing for a future project, and not necessarily just in this class, but for the AP, is 3-dimensional TicTacToe.
That'd be fun.
That'd be cool. But in this case, you know, the colors would be very important.
Yeah.
And it actually be
And actual being able to
rotate.
look at different angles of the.
Yeah, so I mean,
the
that'd really
TicTacToe
just
board.
be like changing the perspective, and then you would have just a lot more win combinations.
Yeah.
To win, yeah.
You would definitely have more conditional statements, right?
Yeah.
Big emphasis on mark feel.
Yeah. More support there. More.
Probably the most important of the three.
And
Okay,
then
gentlemen, questions. Good presentation, guys.
Thank you.
Questions for Daniel and Foster. Questions? Any comments?
I thought it was very nice.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate my name.
Yeah. Well, for legal reasons, we had to put it in. Don't feel too
Yeah.
flattered. I mean,
Uh,
I get you.
We didn't want to get
we
sued.
didn't want to get a lawsuit. Yeah.
Now, impressions, gentlemen. What do you think you could have done to improve this game?
Well, actually, one of the things I was trying to work on, this was after we had finished it, I was trying to even work, would be to have the letters, for example, if you were to click a button right here, you know, if the colors were working, what I originally wanted to be was that when you click a button, it would change the button to the color of the person who, you know, let's say like I'm blue, it would change that box to blue as well as being an O.
Why is that first one? Why did it come out O instead of X?
I think it has something to do with that weird error that we had when we were running it.
Uh-huh.
Either that or O comes first. I think we started at 0, actually, instead of 1. See, I don't, why is it running the error? Did I just do something weird and not realize it?
We must have accidentally edited something
No.
in the code while we were
Input.
screencasting.
I don't know. Okay, so yeah, there we go. There we go. Now it's not working out.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, so, but the other thing is I wanted the buttons to change color rather than, you know, I wasn't thinking of the background to change color. I just have that as backup for the fact that the buttons weren't changing color, which was interesting because I was doing like I tried like button.set background the color and it didn't work. It's like tried button.set foreground the color, it didn't work. Tried both of them, you know, I was trying all these options, it didn't work. So then the second thing I was trying was to change the color of the letter. That way, not only when the background of the frame changes, that you know, let's say like it's like a really dark color, then we can actually change the color of the letter. That way, the letter itself, let's say it's X, if it's all dark, or let's say it's the same gray. You know, it might be confusing for someone. I guess here the buttons are blue for some reason, so it's not confusing. But when I was running it on my computer, it actually would be a bit difficult to see the letters. So I would say like, okay, you know, if the color is like anywhere in this range near the color of this, then change to the opposite color, something like that.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but
Now, here's the only thing that I suggest. Just keep a running tab of, let's say 2 people are playing over and over again.
okay.
Just keep a tab of how many wins each player has.
Yeah, we could.
Because now it says, you know, Daniel wins,
We can present the
and
button
then you
as
game, but it doesn't tell you how many times you've won, etc., etc.
Yeah.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the cool thing about that is that you could also access that in the menu. Just say like standing or something like that, and access the static variables of.
Another thing that occurred to me that might be pretty cool is instead of just the regular X's and O's, use like 2 static images, you know? One of like Homer Simpson
You can
and
do that
the
too.
other one of Mr. What's that guy? Mr. Burns.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, that actually be pretty easy to do.
Like a Simpsons tic-tac-toe, you know?
That'd be my word.
Yeah.
Simpsons TicTacToe.
Any other suggestions, guys?
Make it fly.
Yeah.
Mark, any suggestions?
Thank you guys.
We good? Okay.
Okay, now what's
Oh.
next? Are you going to take this game and try to modify it somehow, or are you going to do a new project?
I think moving on to a new project would actually be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Get try something new. Get
We've worked on this one for a little while.
different stuff.
So,
Yeah.
could use a brain refresher. Some new ideas.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
I think I've done those
neuroplasticity,
games for a little while. Yeah.
neuroplasticity
Maybe.
only goes so far with tic-tac-toe.
Brain surgery. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, very good, guys. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay.